Please stand as I invite Miss Shauna K. Miller to render the territorial song. Miss Miller is the Gen Y Factor winner 2017. In the year 2013, this territory adopted in the House of Assembly, "Oh Beautiful Virgin Islands," as our official territorial song. Shauna K. Miller. Wasn't that a powerful rendition by Shauna K. Miller? Thank you so much. Remain standing and please turn to page 11 in your printed bulletin. And while facing our territorial flag, placing our right hand on our heart, we will repeat the pledge, our territorial pledge of the Virgin Islands. Together, I pledge to my country, the territory of the Virgin Islands, to encourage national pride and dignity, render patriotic service, promote justice for all, be true to God, and remain dedicated to these Virgin Islands. I invite Pastor Gregory George of Lifeway Ministries to give the invocation. Pastor George.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everyone. Amen. Let us bow our head in prayer. Eternal Father, we thank you, God. Father, Lord, you are the God that watches over us. You have kept us. We lift these beautiful Virgin Islands to you, God, this day, as we celebrate where we have come from. We can only look to you, Lord, to know where we are going. You are the God who owns the earth. Psalms 24 said, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. You has given to our foreparents land, these islands. We pray for divine wisdom, God, to chart the course forward. With wisdom and understanding that, Father, where we came from, we will never return. We pray that, Father, we will only grow from strength to strength, wisdom to wisdom, prosperity to prosperity. As displayed so far, the spirit of excellence may continue to be in these islands, upon our government. We pray, Father, that we will never turn our eyes away from you, for you are the author and the finisher of our faith. Bless these proceedings. Let it not just be a routine, but let it be divinely symbolic. That, Father, we are celebrating what you have done for us, God, and what you're about to do for us. For you are taking us to greater heights and deeper depths. Bless these proceedings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Dr. D. Orlando Smith, OBE. Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Honorable Ingrid A. Moses Scatliff. Deputy Premier and Minister for Natural Resources and Labor, the Honorable Dr. Kedrick D. Pickering. The Honorable Ronnie W. Skelton, Minister for Health and Social Development. The Honorable Myron V. Walwin and Mrs. Walwin, Minister for Education and Culture. Deputy Governor, Mrs. Rosalie Adams and Mr. Adams. The Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Andrew Foy. The Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Honorable Dolores Christopher. Junior Minister, the Honorable Archibald Christian and Mrs. Christian. The Honorable Melvin Mitch Turnbull. Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Sandra Ward. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education and Culture, Dr. Marcia Potter. Invited guests, students, welcome. Territorial awakening, resilience in a time of challenge and change is the theme marking our Territory Day 2017 celebration. Every year, the territory of the Virgin Islands observes our Territory Day as we tread the road towards self-determination, hence this year's theme. 61 years later, we are here today as Virgin Islanders, as residents, and as our cherished visitors to mark our anniversary since the colony of the Virgin Islands first came into existence in 1956. Therefore, it is my pleasure to welcome everyone in this gathering for today's celebration of Territory Day 2017. I now invite the Premier, Dr. the Honorable D. Orlando Smith, OBE, to bring remarks on the occasion of Territory Day 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Ingrid Moses, Minister of Education and Culture, Honorable Myron Baldwin, the Deputy Premier and Minister of Natural Resources, Honorable Dr. Kedrick Pickering, Honorable Ronnie W. Skelton, Minister of Health, and the Honorable Mitch Turnbull, Member for the 2nd District, Honorable Archie Christian, the Member at Large and Junior Minister, Honorable Louis Christopher, Member for the 5th District, and of course the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Andrew Foy, who's on the platform with us, all other members who I may not have seen at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm pleased and honored to join you, my fellow BV Islanders and residents, in this annual celebration of Territory Day under the theme Territorial Awakening, Resilience in a Time of Challenge and Change. This year in particular is an especially significant one as we also celebrate and reflect on the 50th anniversary of the ministerial government in the Virgin Islands. In 1956, when the Virgin Islands became a colony in its own right, it marked a significant constitutional step forward for us, marking the beginning of our coming of age as a territory. The emergence of the BV as a territory following the dissolution of the Federation of the Leeward Islands stirred the independent spirit of Virgin Islanders. Strengthened by resolve and tenacity, we were able to make the decision to adopt the United States dollar as legal tender, which helped to facilitate economic and global progress in financial services and tourism. This drive for independence also established a system of self-governance which contributed to the development of our people and our territory based on the qualities to which we ascribe value. The new system comprised of ministers of government holding responsibility for ministries assigned to focus on various subject matters. Along the way, the portfolios of ministers were expanded and ministries were added to meet the demands of the public. Today we have junior ministers to assist in delivering the strategic objectives and policy goals on behalf of our people. And what is of note, we have also observed that along that journey that has brought us to where we are now, that as we have progressed constitutionally, we as a territory have also advanced economically. Today, more than ever before, we are living in a time of change. And while we celebrate Territory Day, we must reflect on the changes occurring all around us and determine how we are to position ourselves. The changes in administration in the United States, the changes in Europe, Brexit and the European Union, the discussions between the United Kingdom and the European Union in particular could have significant impact on the British Virgin Islands, on how we travel, how we interact with and benefit from arrangements with the European Union. Hence, here in the BVI, we have established a committee to review what those impacts may be. And we'll be having, along with our other overseas colleagues, continuing dialogue with the United Kingdom on this matter. When our people more focused and determined on our constitutional evolution, and thus we have celebrated many achievements. We have built schools, ports, power plant, airport terminal, hospitals, clinics, undertook land reclamation projects, developed the roads and infrastructure, improved the healthcare and social services, established a tourist board, improved the education system, and navigated in the world of offshore finance and much more. The BVI is a vibrant territory, one proven to be a real, balanced, and sustainable economy. Our territory is a major destination for tourists from across the world. The BVI is recognized as a major player and contributor in the global economy through our financial services industry. Our internationally recognized success in both the financial services and tourism are a direct result of the united spirit of purpose with which we consistently work with each other, shoulder to shoulder, as Virgin Islanders to make things happen. Territory Day therefore encourages us to ask the question, who are we? We are Virgin Islanders, resilient and strong. We have built a great country, small in size but big in stature. We know the value of hard work. We recognize the importance of understanding our past in order for us to chart the course forward. As a people, we'll continue to celebrate who we are. We'll continue to rise in the face of adversity and opposition. We are people who, through the awakening of our conscience, have given new life to our territorial pride. Each time we sing the words of a territorial song and adorn ourselves in a territorial dress, displaying the colors of the spirit of our people. Each time we proudly recite our territorial pledge, we are reminded of who we are and from whence we have come. So as we observe our historic journey to this moment, it is imperative that we honor the dynamic legacy of the brave men and women who sacrificed so that we may celebrate today. It is imperative that we use our voice to continue to build on the ideals we hold dear in order to secure the future of the Virgin Islands. We must continue to shape the BVI just as our forefathers did. My government will do what we need to do to strengthen the territory and to protect and advance the BVI's interests. As a people, it is our duty to consider what the BVI would be like in the next 20 years and to lay the foundation today for that success tomorrow. I envision a territory that will continue to foster growth and real political advancement and manage its own affairs, and receive global recognition in financial services, tourism, music, fashion, education, sports, maritime superiority, and other areas. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 1967 represented a significant step in the political life of our nation, and we have much to be thankful for. We are thankful not only for Territory Day, but we are also thankful for the 50 years of ministerial government, 40 years of the Ministry of Finance, and it's also noteworthy to mention 10 years of the Constitution since the last constitutional review. On this day, Territory Day, and every day, let us all think back on our past to draw inspiration and hope for the future. And let us all together find strength to continue the BVI's progress and evolution. I encourage you to listen out and join for a number of activities, including a special sit-in at the House of Assembly to be held in October in observance of a legacy and self-sufficiency. May God continue to bless us all. May God continue to bless beautiful British Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier, for setting the pace, reminding us from whence we came and where we are headed and what all of us need to do as a people of the Virgin Islands. Thank you again, Honorable Premier. I now invite Ms. Kendra Penn of the Church of God of Prophecy Community Worship Center to render a musical selection.
That I will have to climb, and there will be battles that I will have to fight, but victory or defeat, it's up to me to decide. How can I expect to ever win if I never try? I just can't give up now. I call never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back is against the wall and it seems like hope is gone, I just lift my head up to the sky and help me to be strong. I just can't keep up now. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that this road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I just can't give up now. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that this road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Nobody told me that this road, it would be easy. Nobody told me that the road, it would be easy. Lord, I don't believe you brought me this far to leave me.
Thank you, Miss Kendra Penn. Another powerful rendition. The road is never going to be easy, but we have come too far to turn back, and he's not going to leave us behind. Thank you, Miss Penn. I now invite Honorable Andrew A. Foy, a leader of the opposition and a representative of the 1st Electoral District, to bring remarks on this occasion of Territory Day 2017.
Wow, from one Andrew to the next. I recognize the protocol already established. Just a few days ago, I asked a young, bright, 7-year-old young lady from my village, what does she understand the word territory to mean? As I eagerly awaited her answer, I heard her whispering the word territory over and over, slower and slower each time. Territory. Territory. To my uttermost surprise, her innocent and honest final response was, time for victory. Initially, I laughed. And I was just about to correct her, but she had already dashed off from in front of me. The innocence and honesty of a young child always amazes the best of us. Later that evening, when I went home and started to replay the events of the day in my mind, that one moment remained etched in my mind, because to me, that young, bright, 7-year-old young girl was not incorrect in many respects. As we celebrate Territory Day under the theme Territorial Awakening, Resilience in a Time of Challenge and Change, the time for victory in our beloved Virgin Islands is now. Turn to your neighbors and with great Virgin Islands pride and a positive attitude, say to them, neighbor, time for victory. Turn to other neighbor and say, neighbor, time for victory. Our Virgin Islands must listen attentively because victory is already knocking at our doors. All we have to do is clothe ourselves with the appropriate garment, open the door, make victory feel welcome, and victory will come itself and welcome itself in without much hassle, without much fight, without any manipulation. Because just like how it is now mango season in the Virgin Islands, it is also victory season for these Virgin Islands. With that backdrop, I say God's blessings to each of you. I take this time to wish each of you under the sound of my voice a blessed Virgin Islands Day and as well a happy Territory Day. As leaders, we must never ask others to do what we are not willing to do for ourselves. Hence, I also did my own research. My research was on Territory Day in the British Virgin Islands. As I searched the internet looking for information on Territory Day in the BVI, a paragraph under the section on, quote, History of British Virgin Islands Territory Day caught my eye. It said, and I quote, from 1872 until 1956, the islands were part of the colony of the Leeward Islands. Colony status was achieved for the islands in 1960, and the islands were autonomous by 1967. From the 1960s onward, the islands have slowly switched from an agriculture-based economy towards tourism and financial services. The British Virgin Islands has transformed into one of the wealthiest areas in the Caribbean. End of quote. Then I stopped to ponder how this transformation may have occurred and what makes it sustainable. A few thoughts crossed my mind. We had a number of forward thinkers who realized that in order for progress to come, trade was important. But what did we have to trade? Our labor, agricultural products, coal, fish. For fish and other of our then products to travel to other countries, we needed boats. So without even realizing it, our forefathers started to develop a new industry in the Virgin Islands named the marine industry. People like the Davies and the Fretts, led by Edward Frett on the eastern end of the island, got into boat building. And people like Edwin Hodge and the West End Smiths also joined in. Travel to places like St. Martin, Anguilla, the USVI, and Dominican Republic then became possible, and fortunes started to be made. They built this industry with the people, for the people, and by the people. They were busy building this industry together, being one in spirit, one in heart, and in oneness with God. In addition, but not limited to, the Bargus Bay Pickerings were running the Empress in 1963 to and from St. Thomas. Captain Fishy was running the Sunshine, and Mr. Cobham was running the Youth of Tortola with Captain Haycraft. As a result, the people of the BVI benefited significantly in many respects from this marine industry. Our territory and our economy started to grow. Today, we continue to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They had a good taste of victory back then in this industry. But I'm here to tell you that victory is once again knocking at our doors in the marine industry. Our seawater is our modern-day gold mines. We must now move with haste to modernize and develop our seaports, get our people qualified and certified in all areas of the marine industry, and protect them through legislation and policy. We must ensure that the capital they will need to be successful in the industry is more readily and available and accessible to them. I'm confident that once we approach the challenges in these areas with the same mindset of our forefathers, one mind, one heart, and in oneness with God, then victory for us in these Virgin Islands will once again be assured. We must turn these challenges into opportunities for all. But my research also reveals that Lawrence Rockefeller sailed into our waters, and with the construction of Little Dix Bay, coupled with in the 1970s when Mr. Cripps built Prospect Reef, together with other hotels that were springing up around the BVI, trade took a different turn, which we later called tourism. Today we have Marriott, Isis Villas, Bitter Inn, Oil Nut Bay, Long Bay, Sugar Mill, and many others. It is a fact that the majority of the BVI workforce is directly or indirectly employed in tourism-related jobs. Today, most of our resorts are experiencing unprecedented challenges. Some of those challenges include locating skilled persons to work. I put it to you today on Territory Day that we must be resilient in this time of challenge. Like our forefathers, we must tackle the issues at hand head-on with one mind, one heart, and in oneness with God. We must get all our tourism stakeholders to come together with government to develop a tourism training school center for every aspect of the tourism industry so that the people in the Virgin Islands can be trained to the standards being demanded of our Marriott, or Oil Nut Bay, or Guana Island, or Long Bay Hotel, among all the others. Once they are trained in this tourism service training center, then we must ensure and agree that each of our tourism establishments will hire from this pool of persons to fill vacant jobs, with the only exceptions being certain areas of specialty. This will significantly reduce the number of work permits being requested for in this area, while increasing meaningful employment for the people in the Virgin Islands and raising standards. Jobs will now be looking for us. I'm confident that once we approach the challenges in these areas with the same mindset of our forefathers, one mind, one heart, and in oneness with God, then victory for us in these beautiful Virgin Islands will once again be assured. We must turn these challenges into opportunities for all. Our forefathers did it, and we can too. The time for victory is now. Interestingly enough, my research last led to reveal that in the 1970s, when Mr. Cripps built Prospect Reef and realized that in order for it to work, he needed to get his guests to the hotel. So Air BVI was born. Of course, in order for Air BVI to fly, an airstrip was necessary. That is where a man like Charles Obel Penn came in. He worked with Captain Wagner in 1957 to create the first airstrip at Beef Island. By then, everyone knew that without modern means of transportation, BVI would never progress. What our forefathers knew then was that if they did not protect our main industry, tourism, the BVI economy would collapse. They had no choice. They bit the bullet and gave their beloved Virgin Islands a fighting chance. They built the airstrip for the people, by the people, and with the people. From that time up to today, the majority of the BVI workforce is directly or indirectly employed in tourism-related jobs. Since that time, we have seen our airlift tremendously improved. Since that time, we have seen our airstrip expanded and extended to the extent that in the 2000s, American Eagle gave us a wonderful connection to the United States of America, from which the vast majority of our tourism business originated. At the height of operations, we had 11 flights a day. Air access was not a problem, and our tourism flourished. But then American Eagle gave notice of a hardware change, and in order to continue to survive, we had to extend the runway to its present 4,642 feet. This was a $55 million investment that took place in 2004. From this foundation laid by our forefathers, our financial services benefited, our hotels benefited, our taxi drivers benefited, our people benefited. However, we are at another difficult period in the economic development of our territory. Hotels and resorts are experiencing unprecedented challenges in getting the heads in the beds. We need money in the treasury, we need to pay for government operations, and we need to address in a credible way our airlift situation in order to keep our tourism industry afloat. We also know that if we do nothing, we risk losing those jobs, destroying the livelihood of our people, and seriously undermining the BVI economy. we also run the risk of seeing significant decrease in revenue in the public coffers. It is no secret to you, my people, that financial services has been under attack for years, and the larger nations of the world are continuing this fight. This tells me that we really have to focus our attention on tourism, among other areas. And the experts in tourism have told us that if we hope to grow the overnight visitor business, then we cannot do it without airlift. I suggest to you that on this territory today, that if your desire is to see this territory grow and progress, then we need to make every effort to protect our BVI tourism and grow our tourism product. And like it or not, this also means significantly improving through a credible manner our airlift and the extending of the runway to ensure a greater level of air access, especially with direct flights to and from the United States mainland, among other parts of the world. But the wise among us believe that now is not the time, that we cannot afford to get this done, but they're wrong. The truth is that we cannot afford not to. But how are we going to do it? The same way our forefathers built the strong foundation of these beautiful Virgin Islands. For the people, by the people, with the people. Victory is once again knocking on our doors, and we must answer intelligently or we will all suffer. We must turn these challenges into opportunities for all. The time for victory is now. I am confident that once we approach the challenges in these areas with the same mindset of our forefathers, one mind, one heart, and in oneness with God, then victory for us in these beautiful Virgin Islands will be assured. We must turn these challenges into opportunities for all. Our forefathers did it, and we can too. The time for victory is now. I have just mentioned a few areas where victory is staring us right in the face to get our attention and permission to come into our Virgin Islands so that we can more adequately address and conquer many of our ongoing challenges, especially in terms of the urgent need for increased and new revenues. The lack of money does not make you poor. It is the lack of thinking. Purpose does not always come easy, but when it comes, many lives are changed for the better, because whatever you conquer, you have the power to subdue. So this Territory Day, I urge us as Virgin Islanders to recognize that our victory awaits us at the door. Victory is knocking on our Virgin Islands door. Let us put away our petty differences and work hand in glove to turn what looks like challenges into opportunities for the present and future generations of our Virgin Islands. Our forefathers did it for us. Now we must do it for the present and future generations. It is victory time. Let us as a people concentrate on the many areas that we have in common rather than our few areas where we differ. Victory is knocking at our Virgin Islands door. Let us not get caught up in we're trying to put each other down or in trying to smear each other's name and character. The results thereof for each of us will be that we will reap what we sow. How can we experience victory? Through each of us getting our house in order, individually and collectively as a territory. As Virgin Islanders, we cannot afford for anyone to downgrade our level of thinking so that they can control our lives. It is not the lack of money that makes you poor, it is a lack of thinking. The changing and reshaping of our minds is the key to our success, and only God can do that for us. Our territory is growing old, but through positive and forward thinking, each of us has a responsibility to ensure that our territory grows up. How can we experience victory? As Virgin Islanders, especially as leaders, we must put on the clothes of being our brother's keeper, the clothes of transparency, accountability, integrity through our actions and not only through our words. Actions such as the passing of freedom of information legislation, conflict of interest legislation, campaign finance legislation, whistleblowing legislation to protect public servants and other needed legislation, as well as policies and decisions that will put Virgin Islanders in the front of the car rather than in the back or not in the car at all. These actions will show us that we are properly attired to open the door and allow victory to feel welcome, so that it will come right in without a fight, without trying to manipulate the people, without trying to tear each other down, without fighting unnecessary battles. Our forefathers taught us that you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Let us get our house in order and stop using vinegar so that we can change the results and get to our desired destination during this generation. Remember, for every positive action results in a positive reaction. Likewise, for every negative action results in a negative reaction. Most of our challenges and current situation that our territory finds itself in was not actions placed on us, but rather reactions to our actions or lack thereof. Trying to brainwash or manipulate people to think otherwise will ensure that our victory is delayed, which will result in much misery for us all. Let us prove to ourselves that we can manage our own affairs in an accountable and transparent manner. Our forefathers are looking ahead at us, hoping that we get it right, while the future generations are looking back at us, hoping that we do not get it wrong. So today, Territory Day, I said to my fellow Virgin Islands landlords that our best days are not our yesterdays, but rather our tomorrows. The yesterdays are gone, but the now determines the tomorrows. Therefore, let us do the right thing so that the next level that we seek for these beautiful Virgin Islands will come with a high approval rating and confidence level. It is time for victory. This is our season. And I stopped by to tell you that this is our day. A fresh anointing is passing our way. Once we trust in God and get our house in order, then rest assured that God will once again come through for us in these beautiful Virgin Islands in an even greater manner than he did for our forefathers. Weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Happy Territory Day, and God bless the Virgin Islands forever.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Though the road be rough, with one mind, one heart, and oneness with God, we are on the road to victory. Thank you. I now invite the Ebenezer Thomas Primary School Dance Group under the direction of Heather Butcher, who is the dance instructor in primary schools of the Virgin Islands, to present a dance to mark our Territory Day 2017. Ebenezer Thomas Primary School. The dance is entitled Candle Dance. Candle Dance. These dancers share the light of the candles as a symbol of hope and peace in a very challenging world. The Ebenezer Thomas Primary School Dance Group. Thank you, dance group, for Candle in the Dance. I really enjoyed the changing color of the candle light. So technology can do wonders. So as a people, we can do wonders too. Thank you again to the dance group. Next, we are going to have the presentation by primary schools of the Virgin Islands entitled 50 Years of Ministerial Government. And at an appropriate time, select students will come and present a biography of the respective government leader at that time when I call those names. 50 years of ministerial government. The first ministerial government of the Virgin Islands. This year marks 50 years since the introduction of the ministerial form of government in the Virgin Islands. In recognition of this significant milestone, the government will hold a series of activities commemorating this achievement. Today, we will take a brief look at some of the events that got us to a ministerial form of government and who were the first members and who were the leaders over the past 50 years. Let us then take a step back to the turn of the 20th century. It was the year 1902 that the power to enact legislation for the then presidency of the Virgin Islands was transferred to the federal government of the Leeward Islands. The local executive council only acted as an advisory body to commissioner whose office was in Antigua. The Virgin Islands was at the mercy of the commissioner who decided what was practical for the Virgin Islands, but not necessarily what was best. The Virgin Islands endured World War I, the sale of the Danish West Indies to the United States of America in 1917, the prohibition between 1920 and 1933, the sinking of the Fancy Me and the Endeavour, the Great Depression, and World War II. All these events had great effects on the Virgin Islands, and there was very little that could be done. By the late 1930s, the people of the Virgin Islands not only realized, but also began to vocalize that the only way for things to improve, the only way forward was through political change. But politics had not yet arrested our full attention. The water was lukewarm. With the help of the legendary Hope Stevens, the wheels were put in motion. By the end of the 1940s, steam was now in the air as dissatisfaction with the political situation came to a head. We all remember that great march of 1949 led by Theodore Faulkner, Glanville Fonseca, and Carlton de Castro. And so in November of 1950, the legislature of the Virgin Islands was restored after 48 years of dormancy. The elected members of this new legislature were the honorables, namely Mr. Isaac Glanville Fonseca, OBE, Mr. Howard R. Penn, OBE, Mr. Carlton Leslie de Castro, OBE, and Mr. Charles Brudenell Bruce, MBE. Other members of the council were Sir James Oliver Georges, MBE, Mr. Benjamin A. Romney, Dr. W.T. Joseph, and Mr. A.A. Keynes. The presidency of the council was Commissioner J.A.C. Cruikshank. It is very important to note here that though the legislature was restored and could pass laws, the laws of the Leeward Islands Federation took precedence over local laws. With the dissolution of the Leeward Islands Federation in 1956, the Virgin Islands saw its chance to come out from under such an umbrella and remain outside. So in 1958, with the establishment of the West Indies Federation, the Virgin Islands opted not to join. The Virgin Islands was no longer to be a presidency, but a colony. The years immediately following the restoration of the legislature had opened the minds of the people and showed them that progress was indeed possible through political advancement. Just 3 years after the restoration of the council, there was a constitutional committee set up to make recommendations for further advancement. They wasted no time in recommending that women be allowed to vote and that anyone over 21 with or without land or money. This had the effect of involving the entire adult population in the political development of our territory. It is recorded in H.R. Penn memoirs that as early as 1957, some of the elected members of the Executive Council were calling for constitutional change and a ministerial form of government in an effort to further empower the people and their representatives and reduce the powers of the administrator. This struggle continues to this day. In 1959, the office of Governor of the Leeward Islands was abolished, giving way to the establishment of an administrator of the Virgin Islands and direct lines to London. Also in 1959, a delegation went to London to have constitutional talks with the Secretary of State for the colonies. The delegation was led by Administrator Asselbrook, with other members being Mr. Leslie Malone, Mr. Fonseca, Mr. H.R. Penn. The general sentiment at that time seems to have been that the Virgin Islands was not quite ready for ministerial government and that it should be put off for a later date. The matter was not allowed to rest for long. By the mid-1960s, the government and people of the Virgin Islands felt it was time to move on to the ministerial form of government. Accordingly, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office was advised of the wishes of the people, and a boundary commissioner by the name of Mary Proudfoot was dispatched to the Virgin Islands to assist with the process. In 1966, the first draft of the ministerial system was received. The draft created quite a stir in the community, as there were strongly held conflicting views about it that led to a stalemate. Eventually, a delegation had to go to London to iron things out. So in October 1966, a delegation of 6 comprising of the administrator, Mr. Stavely, Mr. Baker, Honorable Lavity Stout, Honorable Ivan Dawson, Honorable I.G. Fonseca, and Honorable Q.W. Osborne flew to London. They returned to the Virgin Islands not with a perfect constitution, but with a workable one, having obtained most of what they wanted. And so in 1967, the Virgin Islands took that bold step when all people decided it was time to mature and take the bull by the horns and take on more responsibility for running of our country. Many brave souls offered themselves for the chance to hold political office and contribute to the development of the territory. When the dust had settled on election day 14 April 1967, 4 brave and experienced local men would take on the challenge of being the first ministers to run the affairs of the Virgin Islands. They were Honorable H. Lavity Stout, then Chief Minister and Minister for Education, Honorable Ivan Dawson, Chief Minister and Minister for Natural, Honorable Ivan Dawson, Minister for Natural Resources and Health, Honorable Terence B. Lessam, Minister for Works and Communication, and Honorable Hubert Robinson O'Neill, government supporter. I now invite the students to tell us more about Honorable H. Lavity Stout as being one of the first ministers to run the affairs of the Virgin Islands.
The Honorable H. Lavity Stout, Chief Minister and Minister of Finance, 1929 to 1995. Honorable H. Lavity Stout was born on March the 7th, 1929, to parents Isaiah and Idalia Stout of Long Bay. He attended the Western Methodist School and later he attended the senior school, which became the BVI Secondary School. The BVI High Schools now and the Elmo Stout High School. After his exposures to the secondary school level, Honorable H. Lavity Stout had a background in business with successful careers in buildings, construction, landscaping, and in the real estate sector. Honorable H. Lavity Stout was first elected to membership of the BVI Legislative Council in 1957 and was appointed member of Works and Communication following his re-election in 1960. He held this portfolio for 7 years until the start of his service as the BVI's first Chief Minister in 1967. He has served as the BVI Chief Minister for a total of more than 16 years since 1967, when he became the territory's first Chief Minister, prior to his re-election as Chief Minister of the British Virgin Islands in general election held in February 1995. He held the office of Chief Minister from 1967 to 1971, 1979 to 1983, 1986 to 1990, and 1990 to 1995. He also served as leader of the opposition 1971 to 1975, 1983 to 1986 as a Deputy Chief Minister and Minister of Natural Resources, 1975 to 1979. Honorable H. Lavity Stout always supported legislation that was in the best interest of the people and has been responsible for leading and guiding the BVI through most of the period of its development as an international financial center. Since 1986, he has also held the portfolio of Minister of Finance without interruption. He was passionately committed to the development of educational opportunities for the people of the BVI, recognizing the importance of high education standards for the territory's development as financial center. He spearheaded the development of the BVI Community College and also pushed for overseas study in the financial services and other fields for BVI students and young professionals. His contribution to education in the BVI was formally recognized in 1993 when the BVI Community College was named in his honor. It is now known as the H. Lavity Stout Community College. Some major changes under Honorable H. Lavity Stout's administration includes the following. The country took the dimension in education, communication, transportation, and the development of the private sector. Public sector development, electricity and water development, expansion and improvements of road and tourism development. He was a member of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the Rotary Club Methodist Men's Fellowship and was a steward of the Methodist Society. He was married to Hilda Smith. With such sadness for territory, Honorable H. Lavity Stout died in office in May 1995.
There you have it, a sketch of Honorable Lavity Stout. Next, we have Honorable Ivan Dawson, Minister for Natural Resources and Health.
Honorable Ivan first entered the political arena in 1957. He was not particularly interested in politics at first, but though much persuasion from the people, faith in God and confidence in himself, he offered himself as a candidate to represent what was then District 3, the Kingadenby, Bruce Bay area. He ran unopposed and in November 1957 became a member of the legislature. On his first day in office, he traveled from Kingadenby to Rotong on his mule Mabel. Honorable Ivan Dawson was a humble, God-fearing man whose motto was God first, others second, self last. Honorable Ivan Dawson was re-elected to office in 1960. At this time, there was no vehicular access between Rotong and Kingadenby. Honorable Ivan Dawson was very instrumental in having roads established in the area. First, he worked on a road from Windy Hill to Kingadenby, then later on to the Soldier Hill, Mayor's Harrigan, then into Rotong. This meant that the Kingadenby area was no longer insulated from Rotong. On the day of the opening of the road, there was a grand ceremony and much excitement over this major achievement. Honorable Dawson's skills as a community organizer and a man of action was well respected. He was rewarded by being sent back to the Legislative Council in election of 1963 for a third consecutive term. His work with establishment, the road network, and cleaning up Kingadenby Beach was much appreciated. Honorable Ivan Dawson, however, had further plans for his district as he wanted to see it develop and grow. He also wanted to bring as many government services to the community as possible. First, focusing on the young people, he was able to successfully negotiate for the property to build a school in the community, as the children at that time had to travel to Rotong to attend school. That school today bears his name. By 1965, there was a general consensus that the Virgin Islands were ready for constitutional change. In 1966, the Virgin Islands received the first draft of Proudfoot report, which outlined the structure and proposal for a ministerial system. There was much debate and discussion on the proposal, and much disagreement also. In October of 1966, Honorable Ivan Dawson was among the legislation which left for London and the investigation of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to hammer out the new constitution. In preparation for the election of 1967, 3 political parties were formed: Honorable Ivan and Honorable H. Lavity Stout Party. The Beaver United Party was successful, though many had preferred that Honorable Ivan Dawson be made the first Chief Minister. It was agreed beforehand that if the party was successful, Honorable Stout will be Chief Minister and Honorable Dawson be Deputy Chief Minister. Being a man to his word, he settled for the first Minister of Natural Resources and Public Health, and Deputy Chief Minister, Honorable Ivan Dawson, acted as the Chief Minister of many occasions. Honorable Ivan Dawson opted to retire from politics in 1971 after serving for 14 years. Upon request of the governor, Honorable Ivan Dawson served a further 4 years as a nominated member of the council from 1971 to 1975. Upon his retirement from active politics, Honorable Dawson was again called on to serve his country one more time. This time as the Speaker of the House. This he did with distinction until he fully retired from public service in 1983. After having spent 25 years in Legislative Council, apart from his public service, Honorable Ivan Dawson was also a committed Christian and local preacher. He traveled all over preaching the word of God. He was honored in 1985 by the Methodist Church for dedication to work of the church. In this same year, he was also honored by the Kingatimbe community for long and faithful service to the people of the BVI. In recognition of his service to the territory in 1976, he was honored by the Queen with the MBE, member of the British Empire, and in 1983, CBE, commander of the British Empire. On this Territory Day, we honor the memory of the first Minister of Natural Resources and Public Health, Honorable Ivan Dawson.
Thank you. We have the sketch of the Honorable Ivan Dawson. Next, we have Honorable Terence B. Lettsome.
Honorable Terence B. Lettsome. The Honorable Terence B. Lettsome was born on the island of Tortola on March 11, 1935 to parents Francis Henry and Frances Lettsome. He was a proud resident of Long Look, and while growing up, he received his early childhood education at the Long Look Infant School and East End Methodist School. Before beginning his political career, he worked as a fisherman, farmer, contractor, and as an acclaimed Methodist preacher. Honorable Lettsome was first elected to the Legislative Council in 1963, forming the BVI United Party alongside Honorable Hamilton Lavity Stout and Honorable Ivan Dawson. Honorable Lettsome was re-elected in 1967 to the legislature under the ministerial system and appointed as the first ever Minister for Communication, Work and Utilities. The territory saw a number of great accomplishments during his tenure as minister. The territory experienced vast improvements in education, communications, and health services. He spearheaded the establishment of police stations on the major islands, the provision of electricity and water to most areas in the territory, the completion of the Central Administration Complex and sea defense work on Drake's Highway, and the development of the entry port at West End, Port Purcell, and Roetown. However, one of his greatest contributions to the territory was the building of the now Terence B. Lettsome Airport. Due to his contribution, travel directly to and from the BVI is possible. The Central Administration Complex today stands as a symbol of our territory's self-governance. It is currently home to all ministries and offices for their respective ministers. The establishment of TB Lettsome Airport coincides with the rise in our tourism industry. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And finally, we have Honorable Hubert Robinson O'Neill as the fourth of the four ministers who were the first to run the affairs of the Virgin Islands.
Today we would like to honor the late Honorable Hubert Robinson O'Neill. The Honorable Hubert Robinson O'Neill was born on the island of Virgin Gorda on August 26, 1920. The firstborn son of Hubert Irvin and Tessa O'Neill, he received childhood education at St. Mary's Church School.
Honorable O'Neill was an avid businessman, seaman, legislator, and proud Virgin Islander. As a businessman, he owned and operated businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands and British Virgin Islands. His entrepreneurial skills granted him the opportunity to establish his own general merchandise and grocery store in Charlotte, O'Malley, St. Thomas, and Virgin Gorda. Honorable O'Neill, being a very generous man, would often acquire shopping lists from families on Virgin Gorda as he traveled to the islands of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic to purchase goods.
Honorable O'Neill's charismatic personality and sense of humility led him into the political arena in 1967, where he became a member of the legislature under the ministerial system and became a representative for the then 7th District of the Virgin Gorda and Anegada up until 1971. Noted as an aggressive yet passionate legislator, Honorable O'Neill made significant achievements, including joining North Sound and the Valley through the establishment of the village's first road and overseeing the laying of undersea cables from Tortola's power plant to Virgin Gorda, thus granting the island electricity for the first time.
Honorable O'Neill's contributions also included the construction of the first primary school in North Sound, which today is named in his honor. Forever loved by the people of Virgin Gorda, Honorable O'Neill was a true statesman who saw the importance of developing Virgin Gorda to the development of the territory.
Thank you.
Thank you to the students from the primary schools for giving us a brief look into what the first ministers to run the affairs of the Virgin Islands have done for these beautiful Virgin Islands. We will now have a musical selection by the HLSCC Stingrays.
Separate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free our mind. No fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop the crime. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you live to see? Come on, sing. These songs of freedom is all I ever had. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Redemption songs.
Thank you, HLSCC Stingrays, for that beautiful selection, bringing us back to some of our heritage. I now invite Honorable Myron V. Walwin, Minister for Education and Culture, to bring remarks on this Territory Day 2017 celebration. Honorable Walwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know about you, but I'm very proud of the quality of talent that we have here in the Virgin Islands. And I must say that the rendition done of the territorial song was among the best I've heard since that song was instituted. I subscribe to the necessary recognitions that have been made, and so it should be sufficient for me to say good morning to everyone. I welcome you to this another Territory Day celebration. The theme for this year being Territorial Awakening, Resilience in a Time of Challenge and Change. And it could not have come at a more significant time. Today, as at other various junctures of our political history, we, the people of the Virgin Islands, must continue to face the challenges that inevitably lie ahead and summons the strength to move forward. Today, we need to tap into the well of resilience our forefathers had and their capacity to remain focused and recover quickly from difficulty. They showed this ability over and over again. Since our existence as a separate territory from the Leeward Islands Federation in 1956, Territory Day has most often been celebrated on the 1st of July, but today we are celebrating on the 30th of June. It is a day of great pride for the people of these islands, as it is the day which is the closest to an Independence Day for us. It is a day that we reflect on the progress of our country, since we, the people of these islands, had much greater say in our own affairs. And might I say that notwithstanding the many challenges that we have had, notwithstanding the short period of only 50 years since ministerial government, notwithstanding our small size, notwithstanding our small population, we have handled the affairs of our territory very well since 1967. We have not been perfect, and indeed no country is perfect, even those that may think that they are perfect. There are things that we still must do, and we need to get on with them. But there has been steady growth in the handling of our economy and many areas since we've had greater autonomy. Following the abolition of slavery, and even many more years after that, these islands that we call home were not expected by many to amount to much. In fact, it was suggested, as our history would tell us, that these islands be left for bird sanctuary. But in 1967, following the acceptance of the report by Dr. Mary Proudfoot that the ministerial system of government should come into being, General elections were held, as you have heard, and Honorable H. Laverty Stout, as leader of the United Party, became the first Chief Minister of these islands. Honorable Terence B. Lettsome as Minister for Communication, Works and Industry, and Honorable Ivan Dawson as Minister for Natural Resources and Public Health. With the hard work of these persons and the many other ministers and members of the Legislative Council and now the House of Assembly, I am proud to say what a wonderful bird sanctuary we have now. Our bird sanctuary is so wonderful that we have over 100 different species of birds residing here in our nest, and we welcome and embrace all of them. From the writings of many of our leaders, including the late McWedding Todman QC, Honorable H. Laverty Stout, Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill, Honorable Terence B. Lettsome, and Honorable Cyril Romney, we can get a great appreciation for how our territory experienced significant growth since the ministerial system of government. We were able, through the leadership of our people, to develop an impressive road network system territory-wide. We were able to develop our telecommunication systems, which we were able to connect us to different parts of the territory and to anywhere in the world. We were able to develop a modern electricity system. We were able to have free education now up to the tertiary level. We were able to develop our health and social services system that provide a safety net for our people. We were able to develop a vibrant financial services sector and an excellent tourism product. This year's US News and World Report named the BVI as the #1 place for vacation in the Caribbean. The recent report entitled Creating Value, the BVI's global contribution, revealed that our tiny country enables global investment and trade that supports more than 2 million jobs worldwide and contributes more than $15 billion in tax revenues annually for governments around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come a very long way since 1967, and we should be very proud. The success of our territory, as was so aptly put by McWedding Todman QC, is a reminder to us that the economic development does not depend primarily on natural resources, but rather on people and the arrangements they make for the conduct and management of their affairs. And this is why it is important that this government and successive governments continue to invest heavily in building the human resources capacity of our people. The minute we start to cut corners with educating our people will be the minute that the economic growth and development of this country begin to decline. It is the creative genius inside our people that has sustained this country. When we invest in the education of our people, we ensure that the affairs of this territory remain in the hands of our people. We ensure that the key positions in our country are held by our people, not just because they belong to this country, but because they belong to this country and they are competent. It was because our leaders post-1967 were seen as competent that a constitutional commission was engaged in 1974 to prepare a report on constitutional advancement for these islands. This report made several recommendations. One of the most significant recommendations, in my opinion, being that the special responsibilities for finance that was vested in the governor be handed to the chief minister. This was a mark of pride for our people. This singular action suggested to us that we were becoming of age as a territory. It suggested to us that we were responsible people. It created a self of sense-worth, and our territory became better for it because our leaders were now in a much stronger position to help their own people and to develop this country in the way they knew it needed to be developed. And our history will show us that every time our people had greater control over our affairs, the country recorded positive growth. This is why the recent actions of the governor to invoke Section 103 of the Constitution was met by contempt by many persons who know the struggles and triumphs of our country. There is no question that the governor has the right in the Constitution to invoke the section, but it offended the pride of our people. It took us back for a moment to a place that we have long passed and have no interest in returning to, however well-intentioned his actions were. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come this far by the hard work of our forebearers who had a clear vision and determination to move our country forward. And now it is our turn to forge the way forward to build a better, stronger, and more resilient Virgin Islands. The road was and still remains uneasy. We transitioned from an agricultural society to a service-based economy in a relatively short time. And in the process, we have witnessed generations of Virgin Islanders attain economic success through hard work, perseverance, and commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that legacy that, especially in troubled times, that we must hold on to. But in order to move our country forward successfully, it is imperative that we bridge the divides that exist among us and focus our energies on making our country stronger. We are stronger when we are together. Before I leave, I would like to thank very much the Territory Day Committee headed by my colleague and Deputy Speaker of the House, Honorable Dolores Christopher. I know it is not easy to keep this celebration alive and interesting for our people, but you continue to do it year after year. Please give Honorable Christopher and the committee members a round of applause. I ask you to enjoy the rest of Territory Day, and may God continue to bless you and bless these islands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister for Education and Culture. We have certainly come a long way since 1967, and that we should be proud of. Thank you again for your remarks. We will now hear from the primary schools of the Virgin Islands with a musical selection.
Over a way that the test has been
Thank you to the primary schools of the Virgin Islands for that musical selection, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Mrs. Brenda Letsamtai will now introduce today's keynote speaker.
Richard Georges is a writer, lecturer, and editor. He grew up between Trinidad and the British Virgin Islands and graduated from both the BVI High School and the H. Laverty Stout Community College. He holds a BA in English Literature from Texas Christian University, an MA in Creative Writing from the University of Wales, and a PhD in Critical and Creative Writing from the University of Sussex. Richard studies the amnesic qualities of the sea, the rediscovering of lost or fading narratives, and the role the sea plays in the formation of Caribbean identities and subjectivities. His poetry has been widely published in journals, magazines, and anthologies throughout the Caribbean, Canada, the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. He recently published his first collection, Make Us All Islands, which has been shortlisted by the Forward Arts Foundation for the prestigious Felix Denis Prize for Best First Collection published in the UK. He has also a winner of the Marvin Williams Prize from the Caribbean Writer and has been shortlisted or commended for the Holick Arvan Prize, the Small Axe Literary Prize, and the Wasafiri New Writing Prize. His second collection of poems, Giant, is due out in 2018 by Platypus Press. Richard also writes essays on the Virgin Islands history, culture, and literature on his website, richardgeorges.com. In 2013, he co-founded MoCo magazine with USVI writer David Knight Jr. in an effort to facilitate the publication of art, literature, and critical essays from emerging and established artists and writers from, living in, or writing about the Caribbean. As a college lecturer, Richard has taught literature, leadership, and composition at the H. Laverty Stout Community College since 2004 and has guest lectured at Presbyterian College and the University of Sussex. He is currently the head of the Humanities Department at the H. Laverty Stout Community College. Help me welcome Dr. Richard Georges.
Good morning. I'm going to assume the few whistles were from ex-students. I would like to recognize the protocol already established, as well as the very robust program we've enjoyed this morning, and I'd like to congratulate Honorable Dolores Christopher and her committee for such a successful program, as well as thanking them for my invitation to speak this morning. I must say I was honored when I was asked to present today's keynote. However, I was also gripped by a deep feeling of hesitation and consternation. While I am an academic with an unwavering love and commitment to the history and culture of these British Virgin Islands, I am no historian. I would not dare step on the toes of the many venerable historians, cultural workers, legal experts, and politicians who could do a much better job than I in examining all the bends and twists in the road that has brought us this far. But perhaps reassuringly, this keynote is centered on themes of renewal, and that is something that writers such as myself constantly think about. As a poet, and in my station at HLSCC, my daily life is preoccupied with language. In particular, I am deeply invested in words and what they mean, and the various connotations that they contain when spoken, that we are compelled to confront, and the multitude of emotions and implications that may slip past us if we are not paying due attention. As such, there are two words that accompanied my invitation that drove home certain truths about our peculiar realities in the British Virgin Islands, and I therefore felt compelled to confront them. Those words are, of course, awakening and resilience. So let us awaken. It should not be lost on us that the day that we are celebrating is Territory Day. Territory, as in an area of land under the jurisdiction of a ruler, as in possession, as in property, as in the inescapable fact that these 60 islands, rocks, and keys are the colonial possession of the United Kingdom. Let us be clear, we are one of the 13 remaining colonies of the British Empire. Regardless of your politics, and regardless of whether you are an advocate for self-determination or to remain under British rule, this is the first inescapable fact of our reality. It is the first distinctive fact of who we are that separates us politically, if not culturally, from most of our Caribbean family. So while we rightly celebrate the 50th anniversary of our ministerial system and the increase in autonomy enjoyed over that time, we must remember that we neither have complete authority over our own affairs nor representation in the institutions that largely determine our future. You will forgive me, therefore, to explore what this means in the present day. In 2002, the United Kingdom granted full British citizenship to the citizens of the overseas territories. By default, we also became citizens of the European Union. In 2016, the UK's referendum on its membership of the EU led to the ongoing political and economic saga that is Brexit. No one predicted this, and as such, we still do not know what the ultimate consequences will be for the overseas territories. Following Brexit, David Cameron resigned and was replaced by Theresa May, who held a parliamentary election a few weeks ago in order to solidify her mandate. That election resulted in her party losing the clear majority that they held just last month. Talks to form a government between the Conservative Party and the marginal Northern Irish Democratic Unionist Party have just concluded. We do not know what that government will look like. We do not know what their policies are going to look like in the wake of the Grenfell Tower tragedy and the terrorist attacks in Manchester, London Bridge, and Finsbury Park. We do know, however, that we are not part of those conversations. With all this uncertainty swirling around in the minds of British society, the political status of the overseas territories is not at the forefront of their concerns. As such, when the British media, liberal or conservative, engages with the territories, it is almost exclusively in a critical and interrogative examination of our financial services industry, or a fetishizing of this place as another unspoiled place to be conquered by the Western tourist. At the same time, we are facing our own period of uncertainty in the BVI. The public sector is facing financial challenges, while there are clear and pressing needs to maintain, improve, and in some cases develop our physical infrastructure and utilities. We also have to deal with the social challenges that come with the sort of rapid population growth we have experienced over the last 30 years, in particular, crime, healthcare, and education, all while grappling with the uncertain futures of our main industries. We are all in the proverbial trenches, trying to find and develop solutions to the significant problems that we face. Perhaps paradoxically, these great challenges and changes also represent great opportunity. It is times like these that require, as the Turkish writer Elif Shafaz says, pessimism of the intellect, but optimism of the soul. We must question everything, especially the local and global status quo that has led us to these difficult circumstances. We must question what it means to remain a colony in the 21st century. We must question what our priorities have been and what they should be. We must question what the core values of this place must be. We must question the very notion of what it means to be a Virgin Islander. The themes of today's ceremony are awakening and resilience. But Virgin Islanders have always been a vigilant and resilient people. We are not newcomers to challenge. The history of these islands is steeped in trial. The genocide of indigenous peoples, the scars of slavery and the trauma of the transatlantic slave trade, the cholera outbreak and insurrection of 1853, the Kokolo generation, and the loss of the Fancy Me, the storms, the tsunamis, all the various tests that have led us to today. It is in these times that we need to develop our cultural capital to arm our citizens with a sense of self and belonging that is greater than the color of their passport. Look at how lustily our school children sing the territorial song. Look at how proudly they wear our territorial dress and recite the pledge. Look at the entrepreneurial youngsters, BVI and Virgin Islands made, brands, and their success and resonance with our youth. Our young people are desperate for opportunities to express their pride in these islands, and it is our responsibility to equip them with the tools needed to take advantage of those opportunities. Just last weekend, the Culture Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Stephen Lashley, admonished the region to take the cultural industries seriously if they are serious about economic development. He pointed out that in the UK, £90 billion of their gross domestic product comes from creative industries. Every 1 in 11 jobs in the UK is in the creative industries. More importantly, creative industry jobs cannot be automated in the digital age. In South Africa, creative industries alone created 192,000 jobs in 2014. Worldwide, the creative industries generate more than $2.25 trillion in revenue, substantially more than the entire global telecommunications industry, and more than the GDP of India, Russia, and Canada. In the BVI, we are seeing a renaissance of sorts in this area. We can see Virgin Islander fashion designers, musicians, music producers, actors, filmmakers, writers, and visual artists popping up home and abroad, enjoying varying degrees of success. The talent, as we've seen today, is here. These are our present-day culture makers. What are we doing to support them, and what can the territory do to capitalize on this moment? How do we facilitate those children who are exhibiting incredible artistic and creative potential in our schools right now? When do we stop telling them that the arts do not lead to viable careers? When do we start telling them the truth? 3 new books, The Fuzzy and the Techie, Sense and Sensibility, and Sense Making, all published this year, argue that liberal arts majors are the people best equipped to succeed in the digital economy, and not those majoring in the STEM fields. Arts majors are taught to think critically about human contexts and the human experience. They are the ones best equipped to understand people and their various perspectives, and are therefore the ones best equipped to tell us the stories that help us to understand others and ourselves. I fear if we do not start equipping our young people to tell our story, someone will come and start telling their version of our story to us. In facing these new tests of our mettle, however, we must be brave and remember the ingenuity of our ancestors when they faced their own obstacles. We must reject the status quo that has brought us to this juncture and be brave enough to find the creative solutions that led us to invent the Virgin Islands sloop, the traditional style of our gingerbread houses. We must find again the courage and the genius that led us to establish our financial services industry and institutions like HLSCC and the National Parks Trust. We cannot conceive of making our way through the storm by staying the course and continuing to sail straight through it. Fellow Virgin Islanders, what great ideas do you have for our beloved home? What new passage will we chart for ourselves? How brave a world can you imagine? Thank you.
I thank Dr. Richard Georges, author, lecturer, and head of Humanities and Social Sciences Department at our local college, H. Laverty Stout Community College, for bringing together all that has been said here today. And so we know we are on our way to self-determination and equipping our young people for the road that lies ahead. Thank you very much. I now invite Mr. Darnell Sanderson, Gen Y Factor winner 2016, to present a musical selection on the occasion of Territory Day 2017. Mr. Sanderson.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our resounding rise from earth and heaven skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that our dark past has brought us. Sing a song full of the hope that our present has brought us. Until the victory's won, until the victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won, till victory is won.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanderson, winner of the 2016 Gen Y Factor, for singing for us an abridged version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure to chair today's proceedings. And as you can see from our display of our various styles of our territorial wear, we are proud people, and we are certainly set to march forward on the road that lies ahead, despite what obstacles there may be, so that we can overcome and be winners in the end. And so I thank each and every one, but I would allow Honorable Dolores Christopher, Chairman of the Territory Day Ad Hoc Committee, to come at this time and express her vote of thanks to each and every person who made today's celebration, Territory Day 2017, a success. Honorable Dolores Christopher.
Thank you, Mr. St. Hilaire. Well, we are at the end, so I would also add that protocol was indeed very well established. So I'll jump right into the thank yous. 25 years ago, on the occasion of a celebration of ministerial government in our territory, the theme was Challenge and Change, the Awakening of a People. Coincidentally, 25 years later, the theme that we chose for today, Territory Day 2017, is Territorial Awakening, Resilience in a Time of Challenge and Change. And I'm mentioning this because I want you to know that this was by divine order. We did not look back at that book for the 25th celebration of ministerial government. We didn't see it. It was the first meeting, and we came up with this theme. Turn out they are so similar. Isn't that by divine order? You have to agree with me. I am sure that you will agree with me that today's program wasn't just about entertainment. We had a lot to learn. And yes, quoting the many speakers on the platform, we are all awakened now, aren't we? Yes, we have been awakened, and we have put on our gears as of today, and we are traveling the road. We know that many walked this road before so that we can have a better way of life. Some of them are on display here this afternoon. And we are walking, and we will continue to walk. So we give God thanks for bringing us safely to this day. I want to say thank you to Dr. the Honorable D. Orlando Smith, our Premier. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for the message you brought us. I want to thank the Honorable Leader of the Opposition. I have to give you a little joke right here. You know, you hear the Honorable Leader in the House, and every time he gets up, he says, I'll be brief. But we know what his brief is like. Thank you, Honorable Andrew Foy. Thank you to the Minister of Education and Culture, the Honorable Myron Walwyn. Well, he called me one day and he said he wants a celebration. And it must be one of lasting memories. So I am hoping that that is exactly what we had here today. We needed a celebration to shake us up. And I believe we got it. Thank you again, Honorable Minister Walwyn. I want to thank Pastor Gregory George from Virgin Gorda. He's here with us. And our keynote speaker. Give him another round of applause, please. Now, I read something this young gentleman wrote already, and I fell in love with it. And that is why I called him, invited him to come speak to us today. And he did a powerful job. And the note I have here on my little sheet is to say, God is calling you, Dr. Georges. Your country is calling you. I know you've started out, but there's some more work for you, my brother. Thank you. I want to thank the chairperson, Mr. St. Hilaire of Virgin Gorda. He did a great job. The territorial song by our Gen Y Factor winner, Shauna K. Miller. Yes, powerful voice. And then we had another beautiful rendition. You never told me the road would be easy. Give her a hand, please. And the several primary schools we have in our presence, because we always want the children to experience what we are doing, since they will be the ones taking up the mantle just a little later on down the road. So we've had Just Van Dyke Primary represented, Robinson O'Neill represented, Brigado Flax well represented. The dance group, choreographed by Mrs. Heather Butcher and Ebenezer Thomas Primary. We had such lovely music by the Stingrays. I don't know if you all heard about that behavior they had up in Miami lately, but they are ambassadors for our country. Give them another hand. And we had Mr. Donald Saunderson. Yes, a young man with a very powerful voice. And then I want to mention a number of other areas from which we got support: the radio station, the radio hosts, the hosts on radio shows like Mr. Douglas, I see him there, Mr. Douglas Whitley. We couldn't do without all of them. The staff of GIS, the Government Information Service, the staff of the House of Assembly, especially Mr. De Freitas, who took out all those invitations for us. Give him a hand for me, please. And then we had Jafix Designs and JTV. The photographs that you're looking at, they were well designed and placed by Miss Andrea Wilson of Jafix. And that preamble in the back, the preamble for 2007 Constitution, and I think you have a copy of it. It is a very good read, something we should really be familiar with. And you can go to Google and bring up the Constitution itself, and that preamble is right at the bottom. Want to thank One Stop Mall for the decoration, Miss Susan Ryman, her staff, Popeye Service Rental. And then I come to the Territorial Committee. I can't take all the praise because we had some strong support from people like Miss Brenda Lettsam-Tai, the program director, Dr. Alison Flax Archer, Mr. Vincent Whitley and Mr. Theodore James, Miss Bria Smith, Mrs. Bernadine Louis, who headed the booklet committee, Miss Ann Leonard, Miss Najan Christopher, Yvonne McTavis, Miss Yvonne McTavis, and Miss Janice Bradford Edwards. And then I have to thank you, the audience. Because without you sitting there, what kind of a program would we have today? So thank you so much for coming. And my final word is to reinforce the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And you can sing by doing whatever you can do, whatever the role is that you can play. Lift your voice and sing through your hands, through your lips, and whatever you do. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way. Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray, lest our feet stray from the places, O God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our virgin land. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Honorable Dolores Christopher, for putting on yet another successful production of our Territory Day 2017 celebration. Now I am sure that the HLSC Stingrays will send us marching onto the road that lies ahead. And so it is my pleasure as today's chairperson to say Happy Territory Day to my people of the Virgin Islands.